What's up, guys? We are back with another Bandai Tamashii Nations movie realization figure. We're taking a look today at Captain Phasma. So this line is all about that samurai style look that incorporates classic samurai armor into this character design. So you've got Captain Phasma samurized, if that makes any sense. So we've got her here in the standard premium format packaging for this line. The figure comes in a really matte finish slipcover style packaging. So you've got the figure there presented on the front of the box. You've got a really close-up shot of the mask on the side, and then the back of the box, similar to Figure Arts, has a series of product shots showcasing how she can move as well as some of the accessories. So let's do it. Let's pull her out and take a look. And here she is out of the package, our movie realization Captain Phasma. And in the sake of full disclosure, this figure was provided by Bluefin for review, and I gotta say I'm really glad they sent her over because she's pretty awesome. I was really expecting Kylo Ren to be my favorite of this batch, but it turns out it was Phasma, and I'm a big fan of this design to begin with. Well, Captain Phasma on her own. The idea of a metallic silver chromed out stormtrooper is exactly the kind of thing I'm into. So I think this is a pretty cool interpretation of her as far as the, traditional Japanese samurai style armor motif. I think it works pretty well. She does have a few limitations, maybe not necessarily limitations, frustration points when it comes to articulation, just because of how things move on her. And let's talk about that. So we've got a head that can look up a little bit, and then she looks down, and then you can rotate side to side. The armor on her shoulder is pegged into, so you can pop it off there, and it's just a ball peg, and it will move with the arm. I actually have a lot of trouble with this particular piece because the disc hinge in there is pretty tight. So you've got to kind of watch how you're moving it, but it does allow for a good range of motion, and it covers that joint. So it's not necessarily a bad thing by any means. It's just something you have to play around with. The same goes for her cape over here. So she's got a segmented cape, so you got the drape of the cape on the back, and then she has the cape that kind of hangs over one shoulder. So to do that, they made it kind of dynamic also, which I do really like. But again, it's something you kind of have to play with. So it's hinged with a ball peg up there as well, so it can move with the arm and swivel. So the arm goes out, and then it will rotate, of course. You've also got a butterfly joint, which has pretty good range of motion. You've got a bicep swivel, and let's just pop that off. We'll put it back on. You've got the bigger ball hinge here for the elbow, which gives you swivel at the wrist and actually at the top of the elbow. And then you've got hinges and rotation for a ball hinge at the wrist, which is a little bit of a departure from what I saw on the Kylo Ren figure. That one actually was a standard hinge rather than the traditional kind of ball hinge that you see on a lot of Tamashii Nation stuff. So she's a little bit more standard, I suppose, and she does have a little bit wider range of motion because of that. We've got a twist at the waist. Mine doesn't move too far. I don't know if that's normal or not. Not so sure. She does go backwards a little bit, and then she goes forward. You're going to hit this kind of girdle piece, though, so she only goes so far anyway. We've also got some hinges, ball pegs rather, at these armor pieces here. So this piece and this piece are pegged into the upper portion of the thigh, and they can swivel, and then they will kind of move in and out. So you can pop this one out, and there's a ball peg there, and it actually pops in to a socket on the thigh right there. It helps to move things around and get stuff out of the way, but at the same time, it kind of is in the way also. So the legs can go out, but they will eventually go so far where they pop that out sometimes. So you might have to, as I just did there, pop it back into place once you've gotten her into position. They go forward pretty much all the way, and then they go backwards a little bit. The cape is going to kind of get in the way, though. You've got a twist up at the hips, and then you've got double jointed knees, but her cape is going to get in the way. So it really can't do too much more because the cape is pretty rigid plastic. There's not a lot of give to it. There is a little bit of twist down here at the lower knee. You've got twist and rotation at the ankle. There is a little bit of a hinge here. She does have some overlapping armor pieces, and then you've got rocker, and you've also got toe articulation. She does move pretty well. You just have to kind of take a few more things than normal into consideration. And also, the sheath for her sword is ball pegged into her waist. I do have really no issues getting her into good poses. Again, you just have to kind of fiddle around with the pads, make sure that things are the way they are supposed to be. But once you figure out how to mess around with her, you can effortlessly kind of change her up, move her around, and then maybe not knock all those pads off like I was doing. But just like with Kylo Ren, the big thing for me with this particular figure is the looks. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Captain Phasma design, and frankly, this one translates into this samurai style really well because, well, she's
already in a suit of armor, so they just have to take that and sort of change it up just enough. So it's basically making a silver samurai type of armor and then giving it a very Captain Phasma looking helmet, which I think for the most part they did really well. I just like this look. It's not exactly chromed out, and I'm not so sure it's quite as metallic as the Last Jedi version of Captain Phasma's figure arts, but it is quite metallic and it does have quite a sheen to it. I'm not sure you're ever going to get as close to movie accurate without vac metal, so I'm not really in a position to ever expect that. I do think that the luster looks pretty good, and it kind of gives you an idea of what maybe a more realistic looking silver suit of armor might be, rather than something that shines like a mirror. So you've got, a lot of detail all over the belt. So you've got some pouches here. You've got one of those kind of ceremonial daggers like we saw with Kylo Ren. You've got here scabbard here, which I guess you could almost consider this an accessory, but at the same time, I mean, she's got to have it on her, and it's really nice. It is it's a free floating piece in terms of this ball peg, so it does move around. It's got a nice black sheen to it, gold accents all over it, and we'll talk about the sword shortly. And then you've got this cape, which I do really like. The First Order emblem is kind of done up in a traditional Japanese style back here. I like the way it drapes. I like the hang to it, and I really like the idea of segmenting this so that she can actually move this arm and play around, and she's not locked into one position. We've got the kind of traditional, what would be leather type of armor down here for these girdle pieces and the thigh pieces, and then of course some very traditional looking samurai style shin guards with the feet down here, but done up in a very nice Captain Phasma silver. So she is very much recognizable, but at the same time it gives off that very samurai look. And the helmet, of course, does the same. If I have one real gripe on this particular figure, is that I kind of think at a profile her face looks a little too long and kind of frowny almost, but it very much looks kind of like her right there, dead center. That's a dead Phasma giveaway right there. And then you've got what look like a very traditional kind of banding around the back for the head with a little bit of patina on it. It's kind of darker than the rest of the helmet, but at first glance there is not really anything I would change about this figure. I think she looks pretty great. Now, as far as accessories goes, I guess she's pretty well loaded. There may be one thing I kind of wish we had, but it's really more of a personal preference little thing. So you've got a set of extra hands to start with. She comes with fists in the box, and then as far as anything extra for this particular figure, it's 2 sets of hands. So you've got a set of gripping hands, just regular gripping hands, and then you've got a set of trigger finger hands. Honestly, you really don't even need the regular gripping hands. The trigger finger hands work really well to hold the sword also. So you've got 6 total hands. Then we've got the scabbard, which we already briefly talked about, but you've got the sword here, which I think is pretty fantastic. It's got a nice white handle with gold accents on the hilt, and there's the First Order emblem is for the hilt there, which I think is great, and it just works. She holds it very nicely, and it sits in the scabbard, the sheath, really, really well. It kind of locks into place almost, so it's not going anywhere once it's on her. And then she's also got a gun, so a very traditional style looking gun. So this definitely has a little bit of an aged design to it. You can see we've got some wood paneling almost as far as the paint applications here, and then some gunmetal for the actual metal portions. This piece here folds up to kind of, harken back to what her gun actually does in the movie. So it's a very First Order-ish gun in terms of its shape and design, and then how she's able to hold it single-handedly or flip this down, and then she can actually do a 2-handed pose. So she's got a lot of stuff. The only thing I really wish she had is an extra set of hands with like kind of splayed fingers like what Kylo Ren comes with. Not necessarily force, grab, push hands, but something where she could be like throwing her cape back with her hand outstretched, because that's how I pose like the figure arts Captain Phasma, for example, and I really dig that. So that's more of a personal thing, but otherwise she's pretty well loaded. So at the end of the day, I really like this figure. There might be a little bit of a learning curve, maybe some frustration when it comes to moving her around early on, because you've got to worry about those independently moving pads and the asymmetrical cape. But that's just it. It's just a little bit of a learning curve. Otherwise, you'll get the hang of it, and then she does move pretty well. But really what it's all about, though, is the look, because, well, for me, I like the Captain Phasma design, but to translate it into a samurai-style suit of armor, it just works. There's not a whole lot of guessing here. It's quite obvious what they're going for. It's definitely a traditional samurai style suit of armor that's done up to look like Captain Phasma. The two things just marry quite well. So the fact that I like her design to begin with just works when I already think that this line is really cool to begin with. So yeah, if you're into this sort of stuff, you're not going to be disappointed with how this one looks, and then she comes with a pretty solid array of accessories on top of it. So that's going to do it for this look at the Bandai Tamashii Nations movie realization ASHIGARU TAISHO Captain Phasma. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.